As the mayor of the city of Stanton, I call the work session meeting for January 27th, 2022 to order. And the first item is an email that I received and I'd like to read. On January 27th, 2022, I received a request from Councilor Dole to participate remotely in the January 27th, 2022 Stanton City Council meeting due to a family member's medical condition that prevents her physical attendance in the meeting. I will now entertain a motion to allow Councilor Dole's remote participation in this meeting pursuant to Stanton City Council Procedural Memorandum Number 3.
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
pursuant to Stanton City Council Procedural Memorandum Number 3, I move to allow Councilor Dole to remotely participate in the January 27th, 2022 Stanton City Council meeting due to a temporary medical condition.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Councilor Brenda Mead. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Miss Darby,
Aye.
Miss Mead,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, thank you. Councilor Dole, can you please state from the remote location that you're participating in tonight's meeting?
1003 East Beverly Street, Stanton.
All right, thank you. Could everyone on council as well as the audience hear Councilor Dole?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you and welcome. All right, the next item, I would just like to remind everyone to please keep your mask on at this time. We still have a mask mandate at City Hall. So if you can just be mindful of keeping your mask on, we'd appreciate it. Also, I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, especially our school board. Thank you for attending our joint meeting and welcome to all the students and parents as well. All right, the first item on the agenda is a consideration of work session and regular meeting agendas. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Claffey.
I move to approve the work session agenda and regular meeting agenda as presented.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Miss Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey,
Aye.
Miss Dahl,
Aye.
Miss Darby,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is item 2, a presentation of snowplow art. Partnership between City of Stanton Public Works and Stanton City Schools.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mayor, should we call our meeting to order?
We will at 5:20.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Beauregard.
Thank you. And I'd like to invite Dr. Garrett Smith to present this item.
Thank you so much, Ms. Beauregard. Good evening, Mayor Oakes and members of City Council. Stephanie Haskins is going to assist me with this presentation, which was a joint venture between cities and schools. And we're going to ask our snowplow artists and their art teachers who are in attendance to come forward when we call their names, and we can do a photo op up here in front of City Council. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Somebody is going to be ready with a camera. I just know. Right.
Sure. Okay, so we'd love to call the students that are our winners of the snowplow recognition. We will start with Nasiah Bolden from Bessie Weller Elementary. If you'd like to come on up, please. And her art teacher is Ms. Gina Gaines. Secondly, we'd like to call Phoenix Lathrop from McSwain Elementary. Our art teacher is Mrs. Tina Purdy. Next, we'd like to call Randy Enoch from Ware Elementary. Our teacher was not able to be here today. However, his homeroom teacher is here, Mrs. Mary Lee Berries. And then from Shelbourne Middle School, we have Charlotte Carbajal. And for art teachers, Mrs. Cooper, Mrs. Melissa Cooper, but she was unable to attend tonight. Next, we have from Stanton High School, we have Madison Helmet. And for art teachers, Miss Sherry Cezak.
So just so everybody gets an opportunity to see the art, we'll scroll through it really quickly so you can get a chance to see the different artwork. So again, they had to create a design for a plow, demonstrate a theme of a snow day or Winter Olympics. And in line with our Kindness Matters initiative, model kindness to the display to the extent possible and use pictures to represent the theme, neat and colorful. So you can see messiahs. Isn't that awesome? That is something, isn't it? Messiah,
Oh, beautiful.
Very cool.
Good job.
right? Doesn't that look cool?
Awesome.
And then here's Phoenix. An action shot with Phoenix. And here's Randall's. And we got Charlotte and Randall in the same picture since Ware and Shelbourne are right next door to each other.
Awesome.
And there's Charlotte. Isn't that cool? That really is something.
Good job.
Ooh.
And then Madison.
Wow.
Thank you so much for partnering with us and allowing us to do this. Think I can go back, Michelle, and or you already got the pictures you need?
I've got, well, no.
Great job.
Chairman Venable, do you want to get in the picture?
You all can just hold still.
Just look straight ahead there,
I'm
man.
gonna go back to this.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep holding, and we made it.
Could we get a group picture with Dr. Smith and Chairman Venable and the students with their teachers?
Sure, we'd be happy to.
Is that
squeeze it in.
possible,
Oh,
Ms.
yeah.
Bixler?
Let me see, if you all pull in a little closer, let me back up a little and we can. I bet we can make it. Okay, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
job, guys. Fantastic.
Wonderful.
I know we had a question from families if they could leave right after the presentation, and yes, you can.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much. Excellent job.
Thank you. That was
Good
fun.
job.
Wow. We have a lot of talent in the Stanton school system.
Great
I'm
job.
impressed.
That's so much, that's great way
That's
to
fun.
start a meeting.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, so I
Yeah.
I'll say you were here.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'll give him a chance to.
thank you so much for coming, y'all.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah,
Bye-bye
that's
now.
great.
Original Phoenix, very nice work.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suddenly very alone.
Really cleared the audience.
Yeah.
And that's before your presentation even starts.
We know what's really important.
We're gonna be screaming to go back to the art in another 10 minutes.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Ron, coming out of the cold, it's.
All right, the next item is item 3, a joint budget work session with Stanton School Board. At this time, I'll request that Chairman Kenneth Venable call the school board to order.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I would like to call the Stanton City School Board Work Session to order. Ron Ramsey has requested to participate remotely due to a temporary medical condition that prevents him from attending in person. Can I have a motion to permit Mr. Ramsey to participate remotely during the joint work session tonight?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Now I'll call the roll. Mr. Ball? Aye. Ms. McCurdy? Aye. Ms. Paulson? Ms. Rashford?
Aye.
And Mr. Venable says aye. Ron, can you tell us where you are at?
Yes, sir. I'm participating from home, 422 Windermere Drive in Stanton. I had a positive asymptomatic test this past weekend, so I'm isolating as I should.
Good, stay there. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Beauregard.
I'll hand it back over to School Superintendent Dr. Smith.
Dr.
Thank you
Smith.
so much, and good evening again, everybody. So our entire school board is here. We have Ken Venable, our school board chair, Amy Ratchford, our school board vice chair, Bob Boyle, Christine Polson, Natasha McCurdy, and of course, Mr. Ron Ramsey is participating virtually. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And again, thank you for this opportunity. We know that this is a work session tonight. And so what we're hoping for is some dialogue and questions from city council members and school board members. Brad Wagner is going to do the majority of the presentation. He's been practicing to get his time down between 15 and 18 minutes. So we know we have 40 minutes and we think that'll be plenty of time for questions. So we will pause periodically at places where we think questions might be generated, and we'll go ahead and have a nice open dialogue. And it went really well with the school board in our work session on Monday night. We got really deep into it. And some of the complexities with budgets for all of us right now and some of the challenges. So I think it will be good for the public to kind of hear some of the things that we're all working on together. Also, I'd like to point out that since November, we've been meeting with city staff, including Ms. Beauregard and Mr. Trayer, as we've worked through, in order to be prepared for when we got to this joint council meeting. That's kind of been our target. So thank you. We appreciate the collaboration. And I'm going to turn it over to Brad Wagner right now.
Okay, let me get my technology lined up here. Excuse me. Okay, thank you all. The process of funding public schools in Virginia is conflictual, creates conflicts inherently between city schools and city councils, school boards and city councils, I should say. As Dr. Smith mentioned, we've been collaborating staff to staff since November. And I think this collaboration is improving the way we develop the budget. And I believe it demonstrates that we are all committed to making the best choices for the students and families of Stanton. Our presentation tonight will focus on the few most important issues that emerged from this collaboration. Budgeting boils down to making choices. The FY23 budget plan reflects hard choices, and it reflects some disappointment. Disappointment about the things that have been excluded from the budget because we just don't have the money to pay for it. But there's also some satisfaction about the things we are including. We made our top priority a 5% pay raise for all school staff, as well increasing the minimum wage for our instructional assistants to $15.50 per hour. We have a new preschool classroom in our budget to give more of our youngest learners the best chance for success. And we have free daycare for the preschool through 5 students whose parents are employed by the schools and the city. Tonight's presentation is short, 10 slides in the deck. The goal is to focus on a few critical issues that are board and council level decisions. We'll also touch on the essential compensation, new positions, and key program proposals in the FY23 budget. Technology here works.
So left click.
Got it. So I'm going to start off with a quick SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strength section is all about revenue. State finance experts are predicting healthy economic growth in FY22. State income and sales tax revenues were and are much stronger than expected, and more than $4 billion of general fund revenues are available for new spending and tax cuts. 2 weeks ago, when I asked Jim Regibald, the leading expert on the Commonwealth's finances, how these state level trends related to local finances, he responded that it would pretty much be the same. I also found some data just this morning that the Bureau of Economic Analysis reported this morning that the US economy grew by 5.7% in 2021 during the pandemic, the fastest full year clip since 1984. Economists expect the economy to grow 3.9% in 2022. I guess my point essentially is that revenues should be robust in the coming year. Given the brimming state coffers, Governor Youngkin has stated that education is a top legislative priority. We expect a 5% SOQ raise in each of the year of the biennium. Unfortunately, this puts a significant burden on Stanton City, which will have to fund 60 to 75% of the raise applied to all school staff. Governor Northam's original budget included funding for school construction and preschool expansion, and we are hopeful that this will be retained in the final state budget. Weaknesses. Our composite index, which is a measure of the city's ability to pay, as calculated by the state, was increased by nearly 1 point. This shifts more of the cost burden to the city of Stanton. Because Richmond is in transition, we won't have a clear view of the state education budget for a few weeks, to say the least. Another weakness is this SOQ support cap, which was enacted in 2009 in response to the recession. And it continues to impact staffing levels and the quality of education in the state and in Stanton. The issue seems to be gaining some momentum, but I'm not sure sufficient will exist to eliminate the cap this year. We did get an analysis that indicated that the cost to Stanton of the support cap is estimated at $6 million since 2010. That's over $500,000 a year. Also, we have used federal relief funds to pay certain recurring expenditures, including salaries. Eventually, we will have to absorb these costs, and we'll come back to this issue later in the presentation. Threats or weaknesses, I get those all mixed up. The tax revenue share agreement with the city was a hot topic during last year's budget cycle, as the city struggled to meet its obligations to fund the Middle River Regional Jail. Although not fully resolved, I believe we have an understanding that full transparency about how the revenue share is being calculated and applied is of primary importance. We will touch on this issue later and encourage a frank and open dialogue among you, our city's leaders. The pandemic continues, and no one knows when it's going to end. It will continue to complicate the running of schools and driving up costs. And then the so-called Great Resignation is the biggest threat to functional schools. And our budget proposal targets this issue head on. And I was talking about the strengths of revenues, but there are proposals out there to cut the grocery tax. There are multiple proposals out there, and depending on which one, that may or may not have an impact on our local revenues. Let's talk a little bit about our progress and funding of the school's operations complex and Shelbourne renovation. We have initiated phase 1 and 2 environmental reviews at our leading prospect. One of these is completed. Once these are completed, I should say, we can begin negotiations in earnest. In parallel, we are also preparing an RFP for architectural services. This will give us a better idea of the expected cost. Our preliminary estimate for both projects is $10 million. As we represented, which as we represented is substantially more than the cost of the Western State site. At this point, we seek council's confirmation of the unanimous commitment made last June at Montgomery Hall, which on a 50-50 basis would be an extra $2.5 million from the city.
I'd like to ask if we could get a confirmation of the support that you expressed back last summer when we all acknowledged that the Western State site was off the table and that any other site was going to be more expensive. We heard, if not unanimous, the majority support of what the school was facing in terms of getting the maintenance shop out of Shelbourne and all the problems associated with that, and getting our maintenance folks out of the weather of working on our buses. So I just ask for confirmation of that support.
Are there any comments by council members?
Madam Mayor, I
Councilor
think
Clark.
our support remains. I'm not sure that it's a dollar number has been determined. You definitely have our support, and we definitely want to get Shelbourne cleaned out. We want to get that maintenance. And I think I've asked some questions in the last couple of months about how we're doing on this as far as finding an alternate site. But as far as a dollar, I'm pretty sure we have not committed to a dollar amount so far.
No.
And because we don't know what we're talking about here.
That is correct.
Our support is there, though.
I just wanted to make the point that we knew this was going to be more expensive, and that the 2.5 that is already expressed, thank you so much for that being on the table. We really appreciate it. And it represents basically what was already on the table when we were discussing, although it was going to be through bond issuance. It's about the same number. So I just wanted to express the desire for continued support.
Any additional comments?
Okay, thank you. Sorry. I think it's always helpful if everyone knows where the money is. And so I'm going to talk a little bit here about our current balances of our rainy day funds. As you can see, we have a sizable balance in our unrestricted fund balance at $4.2 million as of the 30th of June, and less than $500,000 in our undesignated CIP reserves. Please recognize, however, that this is really insurance, and I am concerned about unpredictable headwinds, which could include cost increases driven by enrollment growth and by the pandemic. Could include infrastructure disasters, as we've seen recently, such as the failure of HVAC controls at Shelbourne, the AC replacement at Bessie, or the multiple cafeteria freezers that failed this past fall. In addition, our Director of Operations estimates that we have 3 years of life in the Dixon boilers, if we're lucky. They will turn 40 years old in 2025. Moreover, in the last 2 budget cycles, if they are a trend, we will likely have to tap these dollars to fill a funding gap in the FY23 budget. Over the last 2 years, these reserves have been contributed $974,000 to meet the school's operating costs. This is a summary of how the tax share, revenue share agreement traditionally works and how the city wants to alter it. The numbers you see up there are pro forma and will likely change. I think the most important thing is to focus on how the math works. At the top of the screen, at the top part of that chart up here, you guys can see my little red light. That's how it was traditionally established and operated. And I think it's been since the late 90s that this revenue sharing agreement has been applied. The EDA agreements have traditionally been deducted from the shared revenue. And these were additional taxes added at the request of developers to be used for business promotion in Stanton. What the city would like to do is add additional or other outside agency obligations and deduct those from the formula. The obligations listed here are recent ones, such as the jails, or older ones that have been in existence for a while. In either case, the city wants to deduct these from the revenues shared with the schools. As I noted before, we do have an agreement with the city that transparency is essential so that everyone, including the public, is aware of the choices being made.
I'd like to reiterate a little bit on that. The 11 years I've been talking budget with city councils, the 50-50 deal has been pretty much an understanding. But this year and part of last year, the outside agency obligations now to the tune of $3 million are coming out of our 50-50 share. And that's what I don't understand. I know that we've tried to give back to the city. For example, a finance director, Gene Colvin, functioned for both of our agencies for a while. And now our HR director to the tune of $300,000 a year in his office are doing city work as well as our work too. So I'm not sure. We're sharing with the city, but the city all of a sudden is asking us to pick up $3 million worth of their obligations, particularly the Middle River Regional Jail, coming out of the funding that they allocated for us. That's a little troubling.
I'd also like to mention that the school has outside agency obligations as well that aren't represented here, including our partnerships with VCTC, the Technical Center, and the Governor's School. And we're going into a strategic planning process with the Center for Advanced Learning, as it's called now. And we're looking at significant obligations there in terms of capital improvements. Waynesboro and Augusta County have already pledged money from their ESSER funds in order to help. And we had already allocated our ESSER funds towards the maintenance and transfer of maintenance out of Shelbourne. So we had no money to provide for that. We are to be true partners in these regional partnerships, then we're going to need to start being part of that conversation as well. And those aren't represented here as a balance to the obligations that the city has.
Will they be incorporated so we can see the true numbers?
I can share the numbers with you, Mayor Oaks, and I did give Councilmember Darby a heads up about this when it happened, since she's the liaison to the school board. But what happened was, there was a vote by the VCTC board. Augusta County Schools, it's a 50-25-25 split for capital projects, and so Augusta pledged to put in $2 million. Waynesboro pledged to put in $1 million, and then they looked to Stanton to put in $1 million. And Mr. Venable and Mr. Ramsey, who are our representatives on the board, didn't agree to that. So they moved ahead with the $3 million they had, which will go towards renovations of that program, that actual building there. And we just told them we didn't have it. Our money was tied up in renovating Shelbourne and getting this consolidated operations facility. So that's just kind of where it is right now. We didn't vote for it, but It doesn't mean that obligation's not going away.
And that's the first phase of money. That's not the total of what's going to be needed out there.
Okay, Counselor Claffey?
Could you go back to the previous screen? And I'm curious about the unrestricted fund balance of 4.2 million. I know that field trader in the city, we are required to have reserves. There's a percent set. It's like 15% of our fund has to be set aside for reserves. Is that true, Phil?
Percentage. I believe it's in the $400,000 range. So this would represent
Less
4.2,
than 10%.
which would be that $4.2 million is after that $400,000 has been taken into
So
consideration.
that's already been pulled out. Their reserves already been earned.
Yes.
Before this number is.
Yeah.
Now, are they fully funded reserve wise?
Oh, yeah.
But whereas the
That's in-
city is not.
We are fully funded reserve. From the recommendation, we're slightly below. But with the current policy, we are at our current policy, although slightly. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd also like to suggest, in a spirit of collaboration here, that what we're seeking would be, let's not add and complicate this tax share revenue formula. Let's keep it simple like it was originally and traditionally applied. So rather than adding multiple obligations and complicating the math and being able to project what's going to happen in the future, what we're suggesting is keep it simple.
Sounds good.
What does that mean?
That means the formula as it's been traditionally applied with local tax revenues calculated as they are, and then deducting the economic development agreement portion of that, as opposed to adding outside obligations.
So are you saying the difference is 265,000?
275,000. That's right.
75?
Yeah. And for the budget, for the school budget, that represents 3 teachers and 2 instructional assistants. That's the impact that money can have on us.
Say that again.
It represents 3 teachers and 2 instructional assistants. And you'll see when we get to the proposed budget numbers, those are numbers we need.
Are we ready?
Yes, please.
Okay. I also want to touch on federal funding. We've gotten a lot of it over the last couple years. In fact, the schools have been awarded roughly $12 million of federal COVID fund relief. Most of these funds have been used for one-time expenditures, tangible things, hardware, buses, automobiles. We've applied it to, obviously you saw 2.75 million towards our moving Shelbourne and fixing Shelbourne and moving the transportation operations. We've improved the HVAC systems across the district. However, some of these funds have been used to pay recurring costs, including data charges associated with bridging the digital divide in Stanton, floater subs to ensure that our schools have reliable access to substitutes, and salaries for positions that were at risk when $1.8 million was cut from local funding in the first year of the pandemic. Over the next 3 years, the cost of absorbing these recurring expenditures will fall on the locality. And we've estimated that cost over the next 3 years.
So when we talk about our rainy day fund, this is the rainy day we're looking at coming.
Be a little more
clear, could you clarify just a little bit the recurring expenditures roll over to the local
Yes.
budget? Explain those numbers. to
Well,
me.
so we have several pools of federal funds. We have the original CARES, which we've completely liquidated all those funds. There was ESSER 2, which is also known as the CRSSA, ESSER 3 or ARP ESSER 3. There's also, there is about 10 different funds that we have accessed and have used. What happens is,
I don't mean to interrupt, but so the $12 million you referenced is the total, the combination of all those?
all the
different-
funds from beginning to
Okay.
end.
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
yes. So in terms of sort of recurring expenditures, which as those grants or those funds, expire, we either stop spending that money or we have to absorb it internally. And as I said, you can see the $360,000 that would fall over to local expenditures in FY24, the year after this, after next, is 75% payroll. And then as we move into 2025, when by that time, all of the federal funding is gone.
Okay, Vice Mayor Robertson.
Brad, and forgive me, and maybe I'm going to make an unpopular statement, and maybe I don't understand it all, but I know on our side, and please educate me, please. On our side, Phil and our leaders told us time and time again, do not plan on something to keep on occurring from these federal funds because they're going to go away. So why did we do that? Or, I mean, please, try to educate me. Why did we do that? We know we're going away.
Because if we hadn't used it to pay salaries, we would have had to cut teachers.
And our enrollment continues to go up. And so we have to, legally, we have to have enough teachers to have the class sizes.
So many teachers per
That's right.
number of, okay.
So what positions are those 7 positions that you're talking about?
No,
that's
those are new positions. It includes 3 school improvement leaders, which actually was quasi-mandated because they've now expanded the number of SOL tests that we have to perform each year. It includes 2 English or ESL IAs at the high school.
That
That's
population's growing for us.
That's 5. And
Okay,
Second language.
what now?
IAs, instructional assistants. Yes,
yes,
English language.
Remember last Tuesday?
we have a lot of acronyms, sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
and I'm trying to remember the top 2, but I've got a lot of stuff looking out of my head right now. And the floater subs, I'll explain that program to you. What we've done, and a lot of this moving pieces around will be clear when Mr. Ben talks a little bit about, the effect of the Great Resignation on our schools. But what that allowed us to do was retain floaters from our substitute teachers from our contracted service that provides us substitutes. We signed a deal with them to get 14 people to come into our schools and be there every day of the school year to fill in, because we knew we were going to have vacancies and absences and people out. So that gave us guaranteed substitutes, 14. We haven't filled all those positions, but it seems to be very effective in terms of the quality of the substitutes as well. And I think maybe if you want to talk about that, Dr. Smith.
Yeah, it's kind of like going back to the old days where schools had the same substitutes all the time. You could count on if you were a kid and your teacher was out, it's going to be one of a few substitutes. So each of the schools have permanent substitutes assigned to them. And we're not able to fill all those positions, but we filled some of them. So it helps. So when a principal knows or last second teachers are out, things happen, sick kids in the morning, there's somebody there. Unfortunately, it's not sufficient, especially with everything that's happening right now, to fill all of our teacher absences, but it helps. It gives us a chance to be on our feet. And for the rest of it, we just piece it all together. We'll talk more about that on the next slide.
Just a question, do you pay a premium
We do.
to have those
They,
14?
they get long-term substitute rates, which is the highest rates.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Vin, did you want to say something?
That's correct. Yeah. So, I'm sorry.
So it really, it's not a premium over the normal sub rate that we pay now, although that rate has increased since the pandemic began.
Okay.
What is that rate?
You are paying, I believe,
135.
135 a day for those floater subs.
And how much has that gone up?
Which I think it equates to about $18 an hour.
It
Going
used to
up,
be
sig-
like
we,
$100.
we've actually raised for clerical staff, instructional assistants, which are paraprofessionals and teachers. We raised, and I don't have the exact figures, we raised the daily rates effective in January because of such of a shortage. And I will tell you, it's not moved the needle at all.
Not move the needle in terms of your
In terms of
ability
the
to
number,
attract people.
the
to
number
the
of,
position?
yep, to attract substitutes. That is correct.
So our next move, since that didn't work at all, what we're kicking around now with teachers and principals, and it's difficult, complex to figure out, is paying our own teachers and our own instructional assistants to substitute for a class period or substitute for an entire day. We're just trying to make it fair, but we'll pay our own people to be the substitutes since we can't get outside substitutes.
But that means they're giving up a planning period.
Yeah.
And the concern for burnout, which we'll touch on the next slide as well, is extremely high.
Let's just, since we talked about it, let's get that. We're gonna have Mr. Venn sort of get into the details here, but I just want to say that what we know is the Great Resignation has hit public education in a big way. You know, our schools are understaffed, our teachers are stressed, overworked, and overwhelmed. And with that, I'll let Mr. Venn explain a little bit more detail.
So in terms of the, as Brad was talking about the Great Resignation, you all are quite aware that we are in a significant labor shortage, and that's everywhere. And it's particularly seen, you know, in restaurant areas and in the schools. And we have to do everything we can to retain and attract good teachers and support staff in Stanton. Without teachers and support staff, we're unable to operate schools and provide the services of education to children of the city of Stanton. We don't have the ability, like certain restaurants, just to close for a day. We have to have staff to keep schools open. To put things into perspective regarding how COVID and the labor shortage has impacted the schools, through January 7th of 22, from August to January of 22, we have had a total number of 300 days staff have missed just for COVID-related absences. So keep in mind, we have sicknesses, personal days, but that's specific just to COVID-related absences. Our sub pool, as Dr. Smith and Brad were talking about, is very limited. I will tell you, I just spoke with our rep earlier this afternoon. When you factor out the floater subs that he described, we have 18 working subs available. 18. And so, as you can appreciate, and that's those folks who are willing to work, they will not pick up, not every day, they're not going to pick up an absence. So that's why we have to do what we do in terms of plugging in teachers and instructional assistants and paying them to do that, and administrators as well. The other thing I want to bring to your attention, you know, like police officers, there's a significant shortage of teachers, and which is illustrated by how so few college students have registered for our regional job fair that's coming up in February. We've been part of this job fair probably since 2005, 2006, and we were provided the numbers. In 2008, there were 574 folks showed up for a job fair. Fast forward to this coming February, we have 123, and that has dwindled over a 400% decrease over the last, 12, 13 years. It has slowly gotten worse, and keep in mind, we are one of 8 or 9 school divisions that will be interviewing 123 folks, and that pool is shrinking. And we rely on the job fair to recruit a lot of our teachers on an annual basis. So that's something that we're having to deal with. And ultimately, the
Mr.
significant,
Van, can I just ask?
Yes,
is it-
ma'am.
Are fewer teachers actually coming out of college?
that is correct. In fact, we were talking to, I think Radford University had one special education teacher graduating.
Crazy.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that is,
Crazy.
Yeah.
we are everywhere, math and special education. There's a shortage, and it's going to be very hard to find folks that are competent to do that.
Don, I would have thought, when you could tell me it was a 400% decrease, that would have been because of the last year or two in COVID, but now you're telling
Absolutely
me
not.
it's
In
over.
fact,
So what,
if you can indulge me for a second.
yeah, absolutely.
So in 08, there were 574. We'll go to 2011, 524, 2014, 382, 2017, 261, 2019, 246. In 2020, 163, right before the pandemic hit. We didn't have it last year, and now we're looking at 123 folks that will be attending, and that's if they show up. And so it is serious, and we're going to have to do everything we can to attract and retain teachers in Stanton.
Can I illustrate the point one other way? And you guys probably won't be surprised. Last year, we did a January job fair to try to beat the regional job fair to the punch, right? Just for Stanton City Schools. I think we had almost 40 candidates. It was a really nice event at Stanton High School. We were able to make some hires right on the spot. So we said, let's do it again this year. This year we had 2 sign up. They were already our employees. So we had to cancel it. It was supposed to be last Saturday. We didn't have any candidates to interview.
Is there a change in the entire, I guess I'm going to call it an industry, even though it's not really, but in how people are recruited into these positions?
I think
Are
what
job fairs no longer effective?
I think what it is, Councilmember Mead, is that for several years, teacher salaries have been falling behind. We talked about the support cap. Even a 5% raise for staff this year, that's not even going to account for inflation. Inflation's at 5.5%. 5% raise is not going to do it. And then you got to commit 30 years to get to retirement. So if you're a young person and you're looking at what teachers are getting paid, it doesn't change that much from your first year to your 20th year. And the idea of you got to commit 30 years to it, and there's less and less support, as we move forward, because we've lost positions since the Great Recession. It really has to be a calling now, because you're not going to do it for financial reasons. There's no financial reason to become a teacher right now.
And with the politicization of education over the past couple of years, it's becoming harder to convince young potential teachers to commit to what they have to deal with.
Yeah, nobody wants to have a target on their back.
Yeah, and I
Exactly.
dare say the environment that the teachers have to, it's when Brenda and all us up were up here in school, we thought maybe it was tough then. It's nothing. I wouldn't want to be a school student in today's environment.
Which is why we try to create such a positive environment in Stanton City Schools. Right?
And that's a reason for substitute teachers too.
Counselor.
For $135 a day, do they really want to?
Laffy?
All right, so what about starting salaries? Where does Stanton stand, and how does this compare to Waynesboro and Augusta County?
So we are and again, we're in FY22 and FY21. I believe no surrounding school divisions got raises. Fast forward to FY22, I believe most school divisions got a 5% increase. And I don't have I can get you the figures, but we are slightly ahead of Augusta County and Waynesboro. That is correct. And we spent probably 8 years since I've been doing this to really work on getting our teacher salaries up and being very competitive. We're not going to be competitive in terms of Harrisonburg. That's very difficult, but we're very competitive with Rockingham County, Shenandoah.
Even in the middle, John?
Yeah, I would say we're probably in the middle at this point, but I will
On
tell
the
you.
scale,
On the scale, yeah.
Did we
And I
get
will
that middle part up to where it needed to be?
Yes, I think our starting teacher salary for a bachelor's level is about 45,200, somewhere around there. And as Dr. Smith said, there's probably a $700 differential between a starting teacher and a teacher year one. And you figure that little increment going, and if you've been teaching for 10 years, there's not a significant difference. We just lost 2 teachers this last couple of months who just left us because they're taking a job in the private sector because they can make a lot more money. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be what we're seeing coming down the pike if we don't do something and act.
And on starting salaries, we're not really just competing against Augusta County and Waynesboro.
We're
I mean, I think
competing,
that's-
we're competing with the private sector. I mean, we're losing, that's
Yeah,
only a piece of that. You're exactly right.
right.
Yep.
$60,000 a year starting at Walmart now.
I want, make sure everyone heard that.
You can make $60,000 a year starting at Walmart.
And I would add that even those that have the calling to be a teacher, you're not just competing with our nearest neighbors of Augusta County and Waynesboro. There are people that want to live in Stanton because it's a wonderful place to live, but they will drive over the mountain to Charlottesville where there is a significant difference in the pay. Yes, it's a bit of a drive, but they feel it's worth it.
5,000 a year.
How much was that?
About 5,000 a year.
And this notion of teachers quitting mid-year, that never used to happen. No one would quit on their kids mid-year. And now this is becoming a trend, it was just unconscionable, for a teacher to quit in mid-year and
But it just shows the burden that they're carrying,
That
that it's
shows the burden
gotten.
that they're carrying and the opportunities that are out there. I've said it for a long time. I hope this day would never come where employers realized how awesome teachers are and what great problem solvers they are and how they can handle multiple personalities at once. And they can do any job. And if you hire them, they're excellent. They're excellent workers.
I think we should have done the snowplow thing after this.
I know, right?
Really bringing me down.
It's true.
You guys should
Bring
be
it
happy.
back.
We did do before and after photos of the snow
We do some
plows.
songs or something.
Yeah, so
There you go.
It was nice when the kids were in here.
Quick question on the 14 subs that you contract with every day. Where do you use all 14 on average? And then,
Well,
and
we
do
don't
you-
have all
We don't have
14,
all 14.
but we use the
couldn't
ones
get
we
14.
we use the ones we have every day.
every day? And how,
Every
what's
day.
what's the average number that you're needing to fill?
Beyond them,
Really?
oh, it just depends on the week. I mean, the last couple of weeks, it was not unusual to have 15, 20 staff absences in a school. And so like we said, administrators have filled in, we've filled in. We've sent a central office person over to take a teaching position at Shelbourne because we didn't have another solution. So that person took one for the team and had the science endorsement that we needed over there. And so we went down a position in the central office and divvied up those responsibilities among ourselves. But we'll do whatever it takes, the number one thing is to keep schools open in person 5 days a week, no matter what it takes. And that's our focus.
We have, I just checked, we have 10 absences tomorrow that we don't have subs. And that's just what we know now. And as we go through the evening into the morning, my guess is that will increase. So you figured somebody's got to fill those spots. So it's difficult.
Thank you. Right. Do you want to keep going?
I just wanted to also, and we listed vacancy up there and it says 10 and it doesn't seem like given the size of our payroll that's very significant. There are more coming. That was from Friday and we know we're losing more people this week and next week. In addition, half of those 10 have been vacant since the beginning of the school year. So the next three slides, we're going to focus on the major expenditures that we must include in the FY23 budget. As I said, employee compensation is our top priority. It's really hard to find people. So we focused on, let's make sure we keep the people we got and do everything we can to keep them. So we intend to take full advantage of the 5% SOQ raise expected from the state. And we are also raising the minimum wage for our IAs to $15.50 an hour. So at least we're competing reasonably well with Chipotle and Chick-fil-A. This $15.50 raise will apply to 2/3 of our instructional assistants after the 5% raise. And as Dr. Smith already mentioned, 5% relative to a long-term inflation rate of 5.5% really doesn't get them very far. Going to switch on if you guys are ready. Switch to the next one. So our budget proposal will include only 7 new positions that are absolutely necessary. I've added a note down there because our Director of Student Services says there is a potential that we need to hire at least 3 mental support professionals, and that would be mandated under the SOQ. It's not included in our figures here today. We cut the request down from 27 to 7 required. I would also point out that the Stanton Education Association conducted a survey of teachers, and the #1 issue overwhelmingly was the need for additional support staff in our schools. Sadly, the continuing support cap and local fiscal constraints make it hard for us to address this in the FY23 budget.
And this is the 3rd year running that instructional assistants in particular have been a requested priority. And you see that those have not been included at all in the current budget. It costs us about $40,000 a year for an instructional assistant, and they're desperately needed.
Also, by slashing the request for new positions, we're also assuming some risk. Again, the reason to preserve our fund balance. We are taking a risk that enrollment numbers and spacing rules on school buses don't require us to hire the 2 bus drivers that were requested, just as an example. We have to hire at least 2 sped teachers to meet our maintenance of effort. But we are taking a risk that certain students requiring specialized one-on-one services will not enroll in the fall. And I can't get into specifics of the details of that. But it is a risk. The additional counselor on there is required by the SOQ rules. The teachers requested for where in the high school are required for the larger 5th grade cohort, the rising 5th grade cohort, and for course requirements at the high school. The preschool teacher in IA will staff the new classroom at Dixon.
And again, at the high school, we're paying teachers to give up their planning block to pick up extra sections.
And even so, I was one of the parents that got a letter saying, by the way, your child's class is bigger than it should be.
Lastly, here we have, this isn't an exhaustive list of the programs and not non-comp spending needs. The goal here is to show you we are trying to address critical issues and how we are funding them. So we're addressing teacher and substitute teacher shortages. We are addressing staff retention. We are addressing learning loss. We are addressing expanded SOL testing mandates. Down near the bottom, we have instruments for the elementary music program. And this follows up on the investment made last year to fully staff our elementary music program. Board salaries now align Stanton policy with all other elected school boards in Virginia. The salary amount represents the salary for 3 school board members for 1/2 year plus benefits. This amount will increase in future years when all board members become eligible for the salary. We are assuming that none of them choose the health insurance option.
I might just jump in, Brad, for a second. If you look at the childcare for pre-K-5 students of employees, we started that this year. Any employee who wants childcare for a 3 or 4-year-old will have a slot at Dixon. And then we use our instructional assistants for before and after school care. We're trying to set ourselves apart when it comes to recruitment and retention. We just finished meeting with Mr. Tuttle and Steve Tate from the city's Parks and Recs department. And so now we're expanding that. So we also have some city employees signing up for the free childcare. It's a partnership there. So now it goes from preschool through 5th grade. And basically we're using the HEART program, that's the Parks and Recs program, the after school program. And any staff, city staff or school staff who wants to have their children in an after school program, we're going to pay for it. And again, it's a way for both of us, city and schools, to retain employees, because what we read, we heard first that people didn't come back to work because the benefits were too good, and so people were saying, well, those benefits went away and people still didn't come back. And as we conducted our research, a lot of it was around childcare. Childcare was the real thing keeping people from coming back. So I don't know what other school divisions are doing that, but we're jumping on this childcare and trying to expand it as quickly as we can.
So the total cost of the childcare that you're providing is $70,000 a year, not per school?
That
or
is, so
Because that's not very, I mean, that's not a lot of money. I mean, it
it's
seems
not
like
because we
a
get a great deal from
good
Hart.
investment.
Yeah, it's a good deal, right?
It is.
So it
We
works
gotta
out.
watch our numbers. We can't go too high or it becomes a benefit and then,
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how many are you taking care of? How many
so
children?
9 staff, children, you could be a bus driver, a teacher, it doesn't matter. But next year, I think the numbers are closer to 20.
At the PK level.
Yeah, that was just for
Yeah, that was just for,
pre-K.
that was just for
Yeah,
pre-K.
that's
Next
not
year
for
we'll go
aftercare.
pre-K through 5th grade. Was that the right number, John? About 20? Yeah.
I think it breaks out, if I recall, the overtime to pay the instructional assistants in the preschool to do the before and after works out to about $40,000 a year. The remaining 30,000 represents for each child, 10 months of Hart would cost $1,500. So that's 20, something like that.
As I was listening to an NPR interview about the shortage in childcare, and the cost of one child
Yes.
is $10,000 a year. That's just the average
Yes.
cost of caring for a child.
And when you're a teacher,
Yeah.
it's more for, I'll just stay home. I don't need to work. Usually
Yeah,
the
right.
teacher is the
Yeah.
second salary earner and I would rather stay home with my child than, have them be a latchkey kid.
And I work out of the Stanton Innovation Hub, and I was speaking to another person that works out of there who has her baby with her every day because there's a wait list at every daycare center available. So
Last slide,
Okay.
number 10. And I believe Mr. Trayer raised this issue with council a week or two ago, but new residential construction in Stanton is driving and will continue to drive enrollment growth. We've reached out and have working with Mr. Rhodes to provide, and he's given us a list of pending housing development projects. And you can see the numbers there. And it's been recommended that we commission a formal study to evaluate the impact of these developments on school population and facility requirements.
and we deeply appreciate help with that study since it's the city's growth that is driving our growth.
Hey, Brian.
Right. Are there any questions?
Yes, Brad.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. When you look at that slide on major projects, as far as Operation Complex and Shelbourne Middle School, and, we try to be very efficient. What would have been the difference in the cost of Stanton Crossing and what we're looking at now?
I mean, we only had very sort of back of the envelope, talked to a couple of architects about it, and what did we think it was?
There's about a $3 or $4 million difference is what we plan. And I think we're pretty close to that. Are we able to go back to that slide? So when you look at this slide, again, we very much appreciate the $2.5 million transfer from the city's reserves. I see our CIP reserves at 300,000. We had that in there to repair the roof of the warehouse if we got it at building 126. So that stayed in there. The 2.75 is ESSER money. We had to get approved by the Virginia Department of Education. We even had to get on a phone call with the state superintendent and explain why we needed to do it. So that's been approved. The 1.83 is in the governor's budget. It's a formula driven by the size of your school division and some other factors that they put in there. And Stanton's payout for that, if it stays, if the new governor's budget keeps it in there, will give us that 1.83. And then we've had discussions with Mr. Trayer and with our board about whether it would be wise or not to pull 1.2 out of our $4.2 million reserves to fund it. And then you see it leaves us with 1.42 to fill the gap. So I think to answer your question, Mr. Venable, if we had been able to acquire building 126, we would already have the financing to do it. We wouldn't have to ask for any more financing to do it. We would have easily been in the ballpark. And so we estimate 10 million is kind of a, like a safe number, with the understanding being anything that we didn't need to spend, we'd give right back to the city. We just wanted to be on the safe side. So we're getting close, we're getting up to 7, 8, 8 million. We're getting close. And again, I think we could have done building 126 for that. But this will be more expensive. And the property that everybody knows that we're looking at, we are in the first phase of environmental testing. We have had independent appraisals done. We've shared those with the business owner. We're waiting to see the first phase of environmental testing because that would impact our negotiations. And it's so far, it's been a smooth process. We also appreciate the city and school work group that was put together that helped us navigate some of these challenges. So thank you for that.
Great. Are there any additional questions or comments?
Yes, this is Carolyn Dole. On the last slide about the study, I think it would be important for it to also include the projected increased revenue from real estate tax from all the new construction, as well as that extrapolates to more sales, more meals tax, those kinds of things. So I think that's important as well. And also, I think when the study's done, I would hope that they would look at certain projects like the apartments at the villages and have an understanding that there's not going to be that many kids added with those apartments at the villages. So that's my 2 thoughts on that study.
Hopefully that would be part of that study. I agree, Councilmember Dole. Hopefully that would be part of it so we could get a real comprehensive look at the impact of these new developments. I hope everybody got the information that was requested by Ms. Mead and Ms. Dole about our enrollment over the past several years. I hope everybody got that information. And again, we stopped taking any out of division special permissions when the pandemic started because we were concerned about being able to space kids out. We get requests probably almost daily from parents who are trying to come to Stanton City Schools, and we haven't budged on any of them. We typically had 50 a year. It was exactly 50 a year when I averaged it out this afternoon. And so that number would typically add to our enrollment, which would add money. But again, it's a balance. We just don't have the space to take these children from other school divisions right now.
How much do they pay?
They only pay $1,000 a year.
Oh, I thought it was 1,500. It's only
Cheaper
1,000.
than
Yeah,
the
it's
county, I
cheap.
think. Isn't it?
I think it's about, the county might be $750. But they may have changed it. Different places are, some school divisions make you pay the whole per pupil, $5,500.
Oh, really?
But then you're dealing with some equity issues there on who can come and who can't. So that's a tough one.
Well, I will say I'm intrigued by the free childcare, and what a great way to think out of the box in order to attract staff. So
Aren't they a great team?
yes, definitely, definitely.
And if you guys remember last year, we said, I know we're out of time, between the free meals that we worked very hard to get, free breakfast, lunch, and snacks,
Nice.
free devices, computer devices, and free internet, we estimated per child per household $2,000 worth of free services just for being in Stanton City Schools. And that came into our thinking too, when we were thinking, are we going to let people from other divisions come over here and get $2,000 worth of free stuff right off the bat for $1,000 worth of enrollment fees? It's all those things kind of came into our thinking. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Well,
I know
thank
we
you.
went over, but
No,
thought it was
that's
a great
fine.
conversation.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And a lot of great information. So thank you very much for sharing. You've given us a lot to think about.
That was
So-
the goal.
Absolutely,
Thank
absolutely.
you for listening. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Oh, definitely. Chairman Venable, did you want to call your meeting?
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to adjourn the Stanton City School Board work session.
Right, thank you, everyone.
Thank y'all for
Thank
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Ron. Your
Hey,
house or down at train.
It's
station?
6:09 at this
Down at
point.
Train station.
Does the council want to keep going, or do you all want to go ahead and take a break as scheduled?
Let's keep going.
Yeah, well, Mark wants to take a break. So, all right, so we're on break until 6:20.
Thank you.
Oh, nice eating.
You too.
I thought the same thing as Mark.
It's not just me. It is
Oh,
warm in
it's
here,
hot.
right?
No, thank you.
All those kids with all that artistic ability. That was pretty cool.
Their energy was great.
That's very cool.
You know, business.
Good night.
They were.
Had the desire.
How are y'all?
Exactly. And that's exactly it. I was like.
Okay. But geographical things, yeah, okay, thank you.
Wednesday in the back of my mind because it
Yeah.
kind of flowed.
Yeah.
And trying to the other things. I wasn't.
No, I know you would never do that, Phil. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you could stay. And they could do it.
Why are you?
Go crazy on me now.
Why are you leaving the design part? Right. I hate to lose that. I think that's such a good idea. Just when we got to get on it earlier and get something that's
Yes.
gonna be a little more durable, but yeah.
Well,
no,
we
I'm
just have to
saying
paint
that-
right on the plow.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We just have to paint right on the plow.
Yeah, we'll have a conversation. Again, I'm hoping that the world allows us a lot more work together.
Yes, me too.
Yes, so we're working on it.
Yeah, bye-bye. Have a good weekend. You sound a lot better, Stephanie. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yep. I don't know if I don't know why there's mustard in a container. I'm hoping it's on the sandwich, but I don't know.
Not, that's fine. I'll just dip it.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait till closed session.
You're fine.
So, anyway, so. Ellen's
Thank
gonna-
you, Morgan.
In the classroom, the sign that says, when it's okay to interrupt Miss Clark. Bleeding, the room's on fire, broken bones, and at the bottom it says, or Dalton Risner, who's our favorite Denver Bronco. Dalton Risner of the Denver Broncos walks into the classroom. Then it's okay.
Yes, that's awesome.
Walked in. Now, I think she just so happened to be wearing her Dalton Risner t-shirt today, so I'm pretty sure that it was all cooked up to, but the kids. They could not believe
Oh, that is so cute.
that. So he's a.
Did you say fourth grade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's not like a big star. He's an offensive lineman, but he went to high school in the same district where Ellen got her first teaching job. So she's been following his career since he was in high school. So he's her favorite player ever.
Sure.
And he's like,
People
this
do
is
get attached.
right
to
and
their
this is-
athletes.
And quite frankly, if you're a middle of the road offensive lineman, you don't give a lot,
Yeah.
that kind of
No,
stuff.
that
So
was
he
like the perfect.
He was eating it up too.
Oh, yeah. That's cute. That's super cute.
So
I love it.
I'll tell you how much Ellen for her 9th birthday asked for and received an overhead projector. That she would use.
She sounds like my sister. That's how my
she would
sister is.
set up in the basement and teach.
And then she became a principal, and now she's at the school district in Shenandoah County.
No, and that's when they were talking about.
But she's ready to go back to the classroom.
It's a call, and they say it's a calling. It absolutely is.
It is. Well, it used to be. Now it's like a torture chamber.
I'll tell you, my sister, was a teacher. She and her husband picked up and went overseas and taught in private American schools overseas, where they were richly compensated, got a big house, which is 20 on here.
I've been with her through all of her trials and tribulations of starting out her career. 'Cause she worked in social services before and then went back and got her teaching certificate. She spoke Spanish fluently, so she just went certification or whatever. Time. So it's high school, and so there's like, you have to grade these essays. Like
high school. It's like you're expected to,
go to the games or participate.
So I heard back from one police officer. I don't think so. Okay.
And then I'll probably come back.
You want me to?
For a drink.
The treasurer.
It's like, I don't know how you do it.
So just recently, was there
Getting an attorney.
The cycler?
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
He's the tin man.
Oh my God.
And Wizard of Oz.
Adorable.
But.
Do they do a full, like, so how?
I have to hear if I only have a heart again. But so they are, but they're doing it with middle school, Shelbourne Middle School. So there's one show's gonna be middle school.
Oh, totally. Okay. That's interesting.
Well, they're doing it partly so they have understudents.
Yes.
Showed it.
That's an interesting idea.
So.
Smart.
So. Chester from the first. Middle school.
They're annoying, are they?
Oh, he goes, Chester. I said, that's why middle school was created. Just that bad, because you have to take these kids, these 8th, 7th and 8th graders. Get it, prevent. But you can't, but you also need to keep them separate from the high school kids who will give them the beatings they so richly deserve. Listen to me. I'm like, I said, revisit your opinion of your teachers in
Here
your
it's-
high school.
is it like-
Sort of wanted to call it. Oh, flat, yes.
I was like 6th grade. But he is, I said, what was the realization of that?
Oh, it's for operating costs. Part of the extra funds that are-
Yep. I just said,
Don't do
don't do it. Don't do it. That's how you lose, because that's what they did in the, got all those positions. They didn't money. Right, yes.
The kids, you're not gonna get this with anything. Parents, they're all.
Good. How are you, John? Good.
No, I just want to, I know they're just about to. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm
She does
here.
that.
Yeah.
That's
high school, the road to Spain.
Okay, it's 6:20 and we're now back from break. Ms. Beauregard, the next item is item number 4, discussion of city manager search process.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite Mr. John Ben, our Chief Human Resources Officer, to lead this discussion.
Thank you. So, I guess I'd first like to kick it off and, I guess the first decision you all will need to reach is whether you want to engage a formal third-party process to identify an interim city manager or appoint somebody internally for that position. I think that's probably the first question that needs to be answered. If the answer is to use a formal third-party vendor for this process, the next question would be, is it for an interim city manager or for the full-time city manager position? So that would be the second question. Regardless of your option, if you want to hire or go looking for a third-party vendor, you have some options there as well. There are state cooperative contracts that are out there that we could tag on to that don't require an RFP. You could initiate an RFP process, which would take anywhere from 1 to 3 months just to identify somebody to get that process going. You could initiate what's called an RFQ, a request for quotes, which is what the city of Harrisonburg just did. You would have to be very specific in your request. And it's my understanding that if you did an RFQ, you would have to take the low bid for that process. Regardless, if you do an RFP or a state cooperative contract, you're probably looking at anywhere from $40,000 to $55,000 to hire somebody to do this. So if you hire a third-party firm for an interim and the full city manager, you're talking anywhere from probably $80,000 to $100,000, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think those right there, those are the questions I think you're going to need to answer going forward. And I would be happy to answer any questions, or if Ms. Beauregard, if you would like to add anything, or Mr. Blair.
I don't have anything to add.
I would add this. Obviously, as the memo states, that the city could do one or the other of these by taking application processes through our normal human resources.
I did leave that out. My apologies. So that is something that we could do. That is
I was going
correct.
to ask you, do you feel confident in doing that?
But that's an option for one or the other.
We don't have the answer is yes, but we don't have the reach and the pool as these third-party vendors have. I mean, typically they have a pool of folks that they know and would reach out to. That is something that we do not have the capability to do.
All right, are there any questions, comments? Any thoughts?
So tell me again, okay, you don't feel comfortable or don't think that you have enough reach as a human resources department, but you were talking about, we have the ability to hire a search firm and they're just ridiculous. But anyway, but you said you could get on like a co-op or a
So there's something called a state cooperative contract that other localities have used, and Mr. Blair can, if I misspeak, please, that have the contract allows other localities, basically it's like a rider, that we can hop on and use their contract and hire a firm rather than go out and do what's called a request for proposal or request for quote. That is correct. It's probably a quicker process, but you're still going to pay for it. Anywhere between $40,000 and $55,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
Mr. Blair, coming from Charlottesville, I know there's been a fair amount of turnover over there. How have they been doing it, and what have you determined is the best way of going about this based on Charlottesville's experience in the last 5 years?
Well, let me also add that I was in Albemarle County when they hired their current county executive, Jeff Richardson. And in that process in Albemarle County, and in the process to hire a permanent city manager by the city council in Charlottesville in 2019, both times a search firm was hired. And to build on what Mr. Venn said, I think, I know people get tired of sports analogies, and a lot of times they're not apples to apples, but the truth is that, when you think about coach searches, things of that nature, executive searches in other industries, and Ms. Beauregard can talk to this, it's the city management profession is like any other industry, just like the HR profession or the legal profession. There's a certain set of people that are out there typically, and one of the advantages of a search firm is that they have a stable of candidates. They have a list. They have folks that they know are looking, and if you engage a search firm, they're probably going to contact people that they know are looking for a city similar to Stanton. Now, that's, as Mr. Venn termed it, that's reach. Now, does that guarantee you're going to get a great candidate from the process? I don't think anybody would guarantee that. But that's, obviously they'll do a brochure, they'll advertise in certain forums. I'm sure internally, Mr. Venn could tell you he would know to advertise on the Virginia Municipal League or things of that nature, but their advantage, their value add to the process, meaning a search firm, is they typically know candidates that are looking for various jobs and various localities, and they probably, if they have candidates that are looking for a city like Stanton, they're going to lead them here. So, typically, I do think most cities do engage a search firm for a permanent city manager search. I don't know that that's out of the ordinary for anywhere to engage. Now, for an interim, I think it's a little less common. Now, as Mr. Venn stated, a lot of places it may be an internal candidate that assumes that role for a set period of time. And while that candidate is engaged as an interim city manager, the council or board of supervisors would then hire a search firm and they would start their search. And that's a typical process. I can't say that I would have any recommendation except to say that, again, I think the normal course of how these searches go is typically your interim candidate, you either hire internally or you might have HR try to do that search first, but your permanent candidate for city manager, you typically engage a search firm. But I would also, I would ask Ms. Beauregard, who's in the field and knows probably more than I do about the city manager searches, but that's just what I've observed in my career.
Mr. Blair is right on. Every time I've been involved, and I was in Charlottesville for many years and went through some of those processes that you're talking about, Mr. Claffey. That's exactly what has happened. There's been an internal interim usually, and then there's a search firm for the very reasons that Mr. Venn has described and Mr. Blair has described, because you really do get that expertise, you get that reach, they understand the profession. That's what I have seen. It doesn't have to be that way, obviously, and I'll reiterate, Mr. Blair says, we're not trying to give you a recommendation, but that's been our experience.
Okay.
Right. Any thoughts? Any other questions?
So what does it require for you to post the position on VML websites, et cetera?
What does it require? There's a small cost. Obviously we would have to develop some type of job description, what the parameters would be, salary, put something together similar to what with city attorney search we did. It would be pretty much identical to that. And we would look at putting the advertisement out to a number of different, job boards, different places that you may get some traction on.
Would you be comfortable in doing that? Just, posting it?
Yes, sir.
Can I
If
just
that's,
say?
if that's the
Yeah.
will of the council, would I be comfortable? Yes.
The question is, would it be effective?
And I can't give you that. I can't
Yeah,
give
and
you
I
an
just want
answer.
to share with you that I went on the VML website, and I went on the Virginia County's website, and there are no city manager positions listed. There are folks who would be direct reports to a city manager. But that, it seemed clear to me that it's not that there aren't open city manager positions in the Commonwealth. I'm sure there are, but they're not posting them on VML. I just don't think it would give us, again, it's the reach that we need to have.
What's that? Go ahead,
Well,
Mark.
I was just thinking that I'm not sure we need to make a decision right now tonight. I mean, Terry's not here. I'd like to, that there's not a full board of 7. We can talk among ourselves and say, hey, what do you think? Whatever, and then come back and try to make a decision. But that's just my gut instinct. That's what I would, just put at. I think we need to wait for Terry to be back here so that there's a full 7 of us here and talk among ourselves for the next week or 2.
Yeah, there's no, we have
an acting
reason
city manager
to make
right
a
now.
decision, but that's obviously up to you all.
We have an acting city manager right now. Let's just take a little bit of time to think among ourselves, make sure we have full 7 here.
At the same time, it might not hurt us to get the position, the description ready. If somebody was to contact us concerning it, we'd say, do you meet these qualifications? Or, this is what we're looking for.
For the interim. Is that where you're, or both?
No, I'm saying, for the whole thing.
Okay.
So
what is the difference going to be for the interim versus the city manager, except for time? You're assuming the responsibilities of running the day-to-day operation of the city. So, I mean, yes, you're either doing it for a temporary thing or you're doing it for a full-time.
Yes, it would depend on the interest.
Of the person.
Exactly.
Which position they're going to apply for. I understand that. I'm just saying, if we have to get together a job description, et cetera, and I don't know when the last time we have.
2019.
So is it still pertinent?
We would have to dust that off
Okay.
and take a look.
Oh, that gives you 2 weeks for the next meeting to dust that off.
Yeah, and come back and tell us whether you think it, needs tweaking or not.
I would be happy to do if that's what you all would like me to do.
I'd like you to.
Council members?
It's how long did it take us to hire a clerk of council? Was that 3 months?
Quite some time.
So I mean, I appreciate the concept of giving it some thought, but we meet twice a month. And I don't think it's fair to Ms. Beauregard to draw this out for an extended period of time. So I personally like to see us figure out a way to move this along a little more quickly.
Man, but did I hear that Leslie at least had possibly agreed till February 24th? Am I just hearing, did I just hear something totally?
We haven't talked about that.
Right.
Ah, okay. I was shutting my mouth.
Mr. Venn, can you talk about a floating interim city manager position?
Are you?
Didn't Lexington have,
So I believe,
From city manager?
so I believe Lexington, and I don't know her name, who was, I guess they identified her as an interim city manager. There probably are some folks who are free agents, if you will. I don't know how one would go about trying to find somebody like that. There are folks who, through third-party firms, that would do that. But to find somebody who's on their own, that would be somewhat difficult. We certainly could look at it if that's the will of council, but I couldn't tell you somebody off the top of my head.
oh, I was just
Yeah.
curious, but a position like that, that particular floating interim city manager would just go from city to city, filling in until that particular municipality could hire a permanent city manager?
That is correct. The individual who I actually sat in on an interview down in Lexington, that's what my understanding is what she did.
Right.
Mr. Venn, I guess what comes to my mind is I do agree that I'd like us to kind of get the ball rolling in some form or fashion. So looking at the city manager's job description and such, I think that's wise to go ahead and do. But what about, could you do some research and get back to us by our next meeting about, we're going to have to, at least if we go the route of a search firm, we need to have information and some recommendations as to who we should go with. So I'm just thinking if we could get that information in the next couple of weeks, then, maybe if nothing else, we can make that determination.
We certainly could
that
come
point.
up with names. I will share with you. We are looking at a pay and compensation, pay and classification study, and similar firms do the same thing. And I've contacted a number of different localities, and you're going to get opinions all over the place. I'm certainly will do that, but at the end of the day, you all are going to have to make that decision. Certain localities choose this firm, another locality chooses this firm. It's really what you all want. But I certainly can look into that.
I'd like to make sure if you're going to look at it, that we actually look at sort of apples to apples. Because Lexington is less than 8,000 people.
Oh, absolutely. You're exactly right.
Now,
Yeah. I mean, as I said, City of Harrisonburg just went through this process.
they hire someone yet?
They have an interim in place.
And I was merely asking about the floating
Yes.
interim because just out of curiosity. So,
But no, I certainly can look into the different third-party vendors that are out there.
And typically when you have a floating interim or a sort of a temp or whatever you want to call it, the job, don't you have to pay for their housing on a temporary basis? So that
I
would
think
on
that would be
top.
part of the deal you all would work out, because if you have somebody living down at the, or in Northern Virginia, wherever they live, they're going to have to live somewhere.
probably so, yeah. So, Counselor Dole, did you have any thoughts on the matter?
I'm in favor of Leslie Beauregard being the interim city manager. I don't see the need to spend any time or effort discussing that any further because we already have her here and she's qualified to do the job. I think we should hire an executive search firm. I think it's fine for Mr. Venn to check around with compatible sized cities and see who they used and recommend, and maybe also get the price from those cities of what the search firm charged.
Any other thoughts?
I'm not ready to commit to all of that right now. So.
Mr. Claffey, any thoughts?
I guess we need to discuss, I mean, if you're gonna do this investigation of area cities, you know, in the Commonwealth, I guess you better start asking them what the salaries are too, because is that going to be a matter? I mean, or what are we gonna have to offer?
You're saying what the compensation package for a city attorney?
Because I mean, I assume we're gonna have to post that with the job description.
That's going to be, I think, part of it, but at the end of the day, and Mr. Blair can speak to that. That would be some negotiating between the individual, you all, and Mr. Blair.
Well, typically on a city manager, I think the salary range, they have salary range negotiable. And I think that depends very much on the experience of the candidate and where they're coming from. But are you asking more to survey cities of a similar size in Virginia to see what their city manager salaries are?
Yes, and then to find out if, you know, if the search firm, I mean, I'm assuming that if you're getting a city manager of Alexandria or something, Fairfax, something major, you're gonna be in a different ballpark than Lexington, which we know is 8,000 people, like we just said. So I'm just trying to say what's comparable to our situation.
So
reasonable.
So am I hearing you would like information regarding the actual vendors, the cost as it relates to a comparable locality, as well as the total compensation package for sitting city managers or county administrators for localities our size? Am I hearing that?
Yes, but don't go into the deep dive on this and take forever. Just something that we can work with as a ballpark figure. Tell us if our ex-city manager was in the reasonable range, high range, you know, tell us what we're expecting down the line.
I certainly can do that. Yes.
Okay. So we're going to wait and come back at the next meeting and discuss this further with the information you've uncovered, Mr. Venn.
If that's the decision of city council.
Is that
that's
agreeable?
That's councilman's vote.
All right. And at that time, we should have Councilor Holmes back, and then he can weigh in as well. All right. Well, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. The next item. Yeah. Roll call. We are now at the portion of the agenda called roll call. Roll call allows each council member an opportunity to bring forth matters for staff follow-up either during the same meeting or a future work session or regular meeting, if additional time is required to respond to a council member's inquiry. With that, we'll start roll call. Councilor Dole, do you want to go first?
I have nothing.
All right. Councilor Mead? Nope. Councilor Darby?
I don't have anything.
Vice Mayor Robertson?
One quick thing, Leslie, and then maybe just, I know, and you have answered some of it as far as on things that we're getting so many complaints. I mean, you know, about the city streets and why haven't they been pushed further? And I'm just I've tried to answer some of them, but you know, because our city department, I fully stand behind you. I mean, you're doing a great job, and I know you're doing it with fewer staff, and I applaud that. I just just can you maybe try to fill us in if, like someone were saying, like the turning lanes, people are having to, I mean, way out and it's causing some issues and I'm just trying to figure out what we can tell somebody here.
Vice Mayor, if I may suggest that we hold this until matters from the acting city manager so that we have plenty of time.
Perfect.
And we'll also have Chris Tuttle join us on Zoom, who also takes care of snow removal. And at that time, I'll ask Jeff Johnson, our Public
All
Works
right.
Director, to get up and
Absolutely.
explain some of this. So if
Absolutely.
you would indulge me, that would be wonderful.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
And I hope we will answer all your questions and we'll have a lot of time to answer questions.
It just popped in my, I'm sorry.
No, it's not been, it's been on my mind all week,
Yeah.
so.
Counselor Clappy.
Just one thing, Leslie, could you give us an update on the animal shelter?
Sure.
And I know that the last meeting, I believe we sort of left it up in the air as to the regional participation. And I was wondering if you had a chance to do any of that.
I did. I was actually going to cover this during matters from the acting city manager too, but
All
I
right.
can do that now if you'd like.
Either way, I mean.
Just trying to
however-
save time. So, because I know we're kind of, would you like me to go ahead and say what I was going to say?
we're ahead of schedule,
Okay,
so yeah,
great.
go
This
ahead.
is something, if this
Perfect.
is something that we're gonna have a lot of people in the audience, last meeting, we had a tremendous amount of animal people.
It's entirely up to you all what
Well-
you'd like me to do. I'm prepared to say something now or later, so entirely up to you.
Are you okay if she waits until matters from the city,
That'd be
acting
great.
city manager?
That'll be great.
Perfect.
And then we can tell the
Then
public.
everybody can.
I agree.
Hear it.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
All right. I have nothing,
Okay,
so
wow.
except to say thank you for stepping in
Stepping
as
up,
our
yes.
acting city manager.
Thank you
Thank you.
for allowing me the opportunity.
All right, that leads us on to item number 6, a closed meeting for discussion regarding the acting city manager. I'll entertain a motion.
Who has?
Don't have it. Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I move to enter a closed meeting for discussion regarding the performance and or salary of the acting city manager pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 and discussion regarding the appointment of a city clerk.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Darby.
I second that.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Ms. Dole.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Miss Mead.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. We're now in closed session. Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
We'll be next door.
Just a minute, let me get things started, okay?
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, you guys, just a second.
We good, Morgan? Not yet. All right. You tell me when. Are y'all okay to come back at 7:30?
We're good.
Yeah.
6 minutes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I move the council reconvene in an open meeting and certify to the best of each member's knowledge that only lawfully exempted public business matters were discussed, and that only public business matters as identified in the closed meeting motion were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
All right, Counselor Claffey is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Ms. Stoll,
Aye.
Ms. Darby,
Aye.
Mayor Oakes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson,
Aye.
Ms. Mead,
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. The work session is now complete. We will go on a short break. We'll be back at 7:30 for the regular meeting.
How you doing, Tom? Yeah, I recognize you. Yeah, I know, me too. I fog up on a regular basis. Yeah. It gets steamy in here. Yeah, well, it's always nice to have a couple of people out there.
Mr. Fosse, you need a
Mr.
mask.
Foss.
Oh, I got one. No fear, no problem.
That's okay.
Okay, I've also had 3 shots.
Well, me too.
You remember me.
I do, Mr. Fosse.
You can't forget me. Because I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna ruffle people's feathers.
You staying warm, Mr. Fossa?
How are you, Miss B?
I'm very well, thank you. How are
How's
you?
everything going?
Just fine.
I
Are,
have
are
to-
you staying warm in this weather? Do you have plenty of heat at your house?
Honestly, I don't need a lot of heat.
At least
I
so
keep
far.
it at low.
Do you really?
Yeah,
Oh,
with-
not me.
with clothes on.
Yeah, right. Lots of
Even with
clothes.
that, The price of the gas is outrageous.
Yeah.
I have not seen it.
Yep.
It's just like I went to Dollar Store.
Mm-hmm.
They no longer have 4 muffins. They now have 3 muffins and the cost is $1.25. It used to be 4 muffins and $1.
Right.
Can you imagine what the profit is now?
I can just imagine. Yeah, they're
25%.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Plus another 20, it's over 50%. They're
Yeah.
out of order.
Yeah.
They're out of order.
Yeah.
It's like this council. I have to tell you. The rate of inflation is 5%. Anything between 0 and 5%. That's the way it should have been. There's no reason for them to jack it up to an average of 26%, which means that there are 50% of them over 26%.
Give me the super secret thing and I'll put it on my.
It's
That's how
outrageous.
averages work. When your head's in the oven
I don't
and your
care.
feet are in the freezer,
If they
right?
need the money, that's one thing. But the only people who are benefited by this are not the people who are trying to make ends meet.
Yes, we can hit share your.
Villages
Let's see what's the timer.
benefiting by it.
Mhm.
And not only that, I want you to know, they put a new issue,
Whatever's on the computer.
new issue.
Do it next time.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Use
They
Yeah.
tell you what
Want me
the
to just do it?
cost
Oh, no, because they like to see it.
would be. Your new house
That's a great idea that why couldn't it be?
is
right?
ludicrous because
I just hate, I don't.
no comparison
Ask for anybody.
at cost and what to build the same house.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yep.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
It's just propaganda.
Or I remember one time I was running the time.
It's
I
okay.
don't like picking,
and started-
Okay.
but hardly, you're the only person that came and ever spoke to me. Not one other member of the council ever came.
I must not have anything better to do.
That's outrageous.
Well,
Not
super
only
sweet.
that, they go after
Okay.
Mrs. Doe.
Oh, uh-huh.
Mrs. Doe is here because she was elected. by
Of course
the
she can't hear, right? Because she's old.
By the people.
So then I'm like.
For the people. For that reason, just like every one of them.
Until the mayor
Pick on her and make her
gave me
look like
the bulging eyeballs, and I'm like, dang, dang.
piece of garbage is pretty well out of order.
No, I forgot. Here,
I
hold on.
do.
You were
Let
elected.
me pull it
by
up on
the
your
people,
iPad. No, 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 no. I'm
Of the people, by the people.
three.
Yes, yes, I will be
When
in
they kicked
tomorrow.
me out here the last session, they were out of order. She was out of order because I never had an opportunity to speak. I was going to say, you are now going to
Of course.
probably agree with the county.
Are you sure?
Agree with the county. It's a lot of.
Maybe they're all gonna call.
Those are good questions.
I wasn't finished with my own.